All right. Once again, I'd like to welcome you on our tonight's book review at Smartversity Book Club. This is where we look at different genre of books. We read, we learn, we implement. And at the end, we want to inspire self-education, self-growth, so that we can become better citizens, better individuals in our various fields. It is believed that the amount of knowledge that we can acquire through reading, as others say that reading some 52 books in a certain period of time, it can be equivalent to someone who has acquired a degree or a master's. So we are promoting a culture of reading and a culture of self-education so that we can acquire those skills that are needed in our businesses, the skills that are needed in our research, the skills that are needed in our career, and at the end, that are needed for growth. At this moment today, we are having one of our group members at Smartversity Book Club, Mr. Paul Sinjani, to take us through a book review, Atomic Habits. And at this moment, I will just briefly introduce Mr. Paul, and he will introduce the book and you take us through. Mr. Paul Sinjani is an educator. He's so passionate about education. So this book that he is taking us through is the book I believe that he has read and he has implemented it, and I'm sure he is taking it into the education as he teaches the young ones and the senior secondary school learners, and as well as Mr. Paul is a farmer, is contributing to the economy, to the food basket, food security. At the moment, it is believed that the global community is going through some food security challenges, or it's up to an individual to take up that challenge to contribute to the growth of the economy in our communities and the nation at large and globally. So at this moment, I would like to say good evening, Mr. Paul.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Adi Milan. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, thank you. You are welcome. You can take the podium and lead us. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for this opportunity and privilege that I was given to read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, and that I should do a book review for everyone. And I must say it is my first time to read a book and do a review for other people, where I read and I share with other people. So it's a learning curve, it's a learning moment for me, and it's exciting. And thank you, Mr. Adi, for trusting that I can do this. You always, I'm in my learning journey. Yeah. So thank you, and welcome everyone. I want to say that I do understand a lot of people have read this book, Atomic Habits, just from the time it was released, and the people are still reading it. And I think on our platform, I've noticed that quite a good number of us have been reading it. So I'm not going to share expert information or anything, but just a few things that I've gotten from this book, things that I'm learning and trying to see on how I can implement them in my learning journey as I continue on this journey. Without wasting much of the time, let us go into the presentation. Yeah. So this will be the outline that we try to follow. So do a short introduction, a short summary about the book, then just chapter summaries. And then I will talk a little bit about the many lessons that I've learned reading this book, and then some recommendations. This is why I would love to encourage people to read this book and even other books that are talking about habits. And then we'll leave some time for questions and comments people can just share what they have learned, ask questions, and when questions are asked, I do not believe that I'll be the only one to answer, but there'll be discussion questions for all of us to discuss as a team. And then, yeah, let's go into it. So this book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. In this book, just to start with, what you see the moment you just start reading this book, you see James Clear sharing his personal story of how he recovered from a very serious injury. And he ended up becoming a successful athlete, writer, and entrepreneur by applying the principles of the principles of atomic habits. He had an injury. He was hit by a baseball ball by his friend, and then he went into a coma, and then it was just a marathon of agony. But eventually, he learned that by doing small things, he was able to get up and be able to walk. And today we can even read this book that he has written, which is testimony that the small habits they can act. Then it is this same habits that James shares in this whole book called Atomic Habits. So what is the quick summary or short summary of this book? This book is simply a guide on habit change. And I think today we can talk about character, we can talk about this and that, but I think all this, when you talk of this one has got this behavior, you actually find that the behavior is a result of their habits.
Nigerian side. All right, good night, Kathy. Glad you enjoyed your visual arts. Did they give you all the materials today?
Okay, can I go on? Hello?
Yes, you can proceed.
Mr. Adi,
you can proceed.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So a quick summary, a short summary of this book is that it's a guide on habit change. It teaches how to create good habits and break bad ones by providing a simple step-by-step framework based on the best techniques from behavioral science. I think those that have done psychology, you realize that there's a field of science called behavioral science, which is psychology actually. The key ideas in atomic habits is that small changes can lead to significant results. I think it's at this stage when I was reading it, and by the way, I need to state here that I did not just read the book. I do not have the hard copy, but I was reading the soft copy that I have on my computer and phone. And then I also listened to the audios. While every time I was driving, I'd be listening to the audios and trying to learn from this book. And then all I came to learn is that I think the main idea in here is that the atomic habits, they might be small, but these changes can actually lead to very significant results. And being a science teacher, I will tell you that all matter is made up of atoms. And when you take an atom as a single thing, you can't actually see it with your eyes, but those little atoms put together, they make up matter that we see. We can see this is a. So Clear also says that he tries to define a habit, and he says that habits, Clear says that habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. And I think here we can look at the chapter summaries. So the first chapter, which is chapter 1, which James titled Atomic Habits. So and then you look at the Airtel. They will charge you a 1 kwacha 50 ngwe for a transaction. and you don't even feel anything, you don't even feel like you have lost any money, but actually, for them, can have remarkable outcomes. Small behavioral changes that are consistently made over time can have here that if we, as we look at these atomic habits, if we develop small habits, just little changes that we make towards self-improvement, in the long run, we are going to have remarkable outcomes. It's like what they say, Rome was not built in a day. James emphasizes that the importance of identity-based habits, which have an impact on both who you are and what you do. So in this book, we are going to find that it talks about, instead of us focusing, I think I'll talk about this in the next on the next section. James actually mentions that instead of us focusing on the results or the things that we want to achieve, he says, focus on who you want to become. Don't say, I want to write a book, but say, I want to become a writer. And then how do you become a writer? He says, when you write one page in a day, then you are already becoming a writer. And just that is actually going to do what? To help you become a better person and improve yourself. So he wants us, he's encouraging us to look at who we are, what we want to become, and not just what we want to achieve. And if I'm too fast, please, people, feel free to tell me to slow down. Yeah. So the quick summary on chapter 2, how our habits can actually shape our identity. This is coming from the last point that I mentioned. Oh, habits can shape our identity. If we choose on certain habits, of course, if we are able to identify what we want to be, and then we choose the habits that can help us to become that what we want to be. Habits are the ones that are going to shape us. It's not by us having a desire that, for example, I want to be a writer, but we haven't developed any habits that can help us to develop the skill of writing. We haven't developed any habits that can help us to become writers. Nothing is going to happen. And I think as we go forward, we are going to talk about some of the habits that we can actually adopt. So here he says that your habits are linked to your self-image and self-identity. And actually, people say that you are what you eat. But I also believe that we are a sum total of our actions, of our little actions. My character, my personality is formed. People identify me by the things that they see me do. And this is what we mean by saying that our habits are linked to our self-image and the sense of identity. So if we develop positive habits, we are going to have a positive self-image. And people are going to identify by that. Today, we can say Ali is a writer, is an author, because we have seen him writing. He started very small, writing just small, short articles in the newspaper on concerning ICT. And today, he has grown big. He started very small, and today, whenever we hear the name Ali, we can actually think of that author who puts articles in the newspaper called the ICT Matter. The most effective way to change your habits is to focus, is not to focus on what you want to achieve, but on who you wish to become. Let's not focus on what we want to achieve, but let us focus on what we want to become. That is the best way to change our habits. I think I mentioned this one earlier on. We are saying that our focus shouldn't be on what we want to achieve, but our focus should be on what we want to become. I gave an example of saying we shouldn't be saying that I want to write a book, but we should be saying I want to become a writer. Because what happens once you write a book, you may actually not write a book again. But if you identify yourself that I want to become a writer, you are going to be writing books. After writing one book, you because you are identifying yourself as a writer, you will be writing more books. If you identify yourself as a teacher, whenever you see an opportunity to teach, you will teach. The author, who is James Clear, suggests 2 steps for building identity-based habits. That is deciding the type of person you want to be and proving it to yourself with small wins. I gave an example, which I've even written here. You write 1 page, you are a writer. And I think this is in human nature. When you look at behavioral science, you actually realize that when you do something, when you just do a small thing as a person and you achieve it, you actually feel that sense of satisfaction. And then that is a win. When you feel that you are winning, you are actually getting motivated to go back and do something similar. So this is what we are saying, that this is why the author is trying to suggest giving us these 2 steps. You first decide the type of person you want to become. In this case, I want to become a writer. And how are you going to prove this to yourself? By giving yourself small wins. How are you going to do it? You don't start by writing a long book in a day, but you start by just writing maybe half a page, or just putting your ideas on a piece of paper. The moment you do that, you are a writer. And if you have noticed, a lot of writers, a lot of authors, they actually start by writing very small volume books. And then as they get motivated because of their small wins, they actually end up writing bigger books in the long run. Mr. Adi, are we there?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we
Thank
are
you.
on
Oh,
the
yes.
chapter summaries. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
yes, I'm here. I saw a message that the host is asking you to start a video, so I thought maybe the video is also okay now. I can see. Okay, so in chapter 3, how to build better habits in 4 simple steps. Yeah. So here we will see the ideas that James is giving us, and I think even as we are looking at habits, I know we might have this question, but how do I build habits? And this is why he's offering a solution that he's suggesting 4 steps. The author presents a simple framework for understanding how habits work and how to change them. When you read the book, you find that he's borrowing from the behavior science, like the behavioral science, and from there he has come up with 4 laws. He's calling the laws of behavior change, and he's calling them that the first law is the change must be obvious, or the habit must be obvious. You must make it attractive, and you must make it easy, and you must make it satisfying. When you make it obvious, I think this is where we are talking about being intentional. We need to be intentional, and then when making it attractive, it should be something that is somewhere, somehow motivating you. It draws your attention. You shouldn't start doing something that is going to put you off, but it should be something that is attracting. And I think when I was reading the book and also listening to the audios, this is where he talked of the psychology that these shop owners apply on us. You know, when you're entering ShopRite, look at the Christmas time, eh? You know, the moment you are reaching October, November, they start putting up everything in red. They are playing on our psyche. They are trying to make things attractive so that we can buy things from them. We are entering ShopRite, they'll put all those things in right at the entrance. Even if you didn't plan to buy that on your budget, you end up buying something, everything attractive there. So, and I think we can borrow from them and learn, and also use the same thing by making our habits and the goals that we are setting, or the changes that we want to see in our lives, we can actually make them very attractive. I'm trying to avoid to use the word goal in here because James actually encourages us to focus on habits and not on the goals. Because he says that when you focus on the goals, you may achieve your goals, but what next? But if you focus on your habits, the habits, they make you the person that you become to be. Then this same follows, they correspond to the 4 steps of the habit loop. He actually has coined up an idea, he's calling the habit loop, where he has got the cue. So the cue is something that triggers the craving in you. When, for example, it can be, the cue can be an environment, it can be time, it can be a situation. I think I once watched just a documentary or just something on YouTube where this person was talking about how they struggled to stop beer drinking. And every time he tell himself that I'll stop being an alcoholic, then he was making a mistake of going near bars. And every time he went near bars, the act of seeing a bar would trigger something in him that, no, you must go and drink. And then he'll find himself, without even thinking about it, he'll go in a bar and buy a bottle of beer. Then afterwards, he realizes, oh, I'm supposed to not be drinking. So the cue actually is something that triggers the craving in you. And once there's a craving, there's a response now. And once you carry out that response, you carry out the action, then you get a reward. And I think this is also true. This is just now my thinking as I was reading the book. When you look at this, I think this can also be both positive and negative. Like the example that I've given of somebody trying to quit beer drinking. They end up going near bars and then they get a craving to go and to drink. And then they respond by buying the bottle of beer and drink it. And they feel satisfied. But actually it is negative in the sense that they are not achieving they are not, their intentions are not being met. Their intention is to stop drinking, but they end up drinking. But we can also use this in a positive sense. For example, we know that today in Zambia, we are having the issue of cholera. So we can develop the habit of hand washing, you know. So if we just tell people, wash hands, it won't work. And I'll use an example in a school setup. What we have done in a school is that we have put up a lot of washing points with the soap, water and the soap and buckets, so that every time children are passing, they're seeing water and buckets. And we are trying to create the craving in them. So the moment they see the bucket of water, they want to wash their hands. That is the craving. And the response, they go and wash their hands. The reward, we know that we are going to prevent the cholera. There'll be no, we will stop the spread of cholera in our society. So in this chapter, it focuses on the first. So as we move on now, which is now going to chapter 4, James is going to focus on the first law. But I might say that when I was reading this book by Adi, I want to mention something that I noticed. Actually, if you look at it, to a certain extent, James sounds like he's repeating a lot of things just about the habit. And when I analyzed the way he has set up his book, I could actually break it or divide it into 3 sections. The first part is what I'm calling, which he also calls it the fundamentals, where he has got chapter 1, 2, and 3, where he introduces the habits, which we have just talked about, the idea or the concept of atomic habits. And this is where he even creates the 4 steps of how we can build a new habit by, that is where he's talking about the habit loop, the cue, the craving, and the response. And then I saw the second part, which is the one I'll be tackling just in a few minutes, where he's talking about the laws of change. And this cover here, it covers from chapter 4 up to chapter 17. But this is subdivided into 4 small sections, which are actually forming up the laws, which is the first law, make it obvious. I'll talk about that soon. And then the second law, make it attractive. Then the third law, make it easy. And the fourth and final law, make it satisfying. So this is how we set up his book. He actually broke it up in 2-3 sections. The last section, he calls it the advanced tactics. This is where now he actually giving us more ways of how we can build these habits in ourselves. Yeah, I continue. Okay. So the first law, which is the first law of change, make it obvious. This is covered in chapters 4 to 7. So when we talk about making it obvious, according to James Clear, this means making the cues that trigger a habit more visible and noticeable so that you are more likely to act on them. Like I gave an example of a situation in our school, what we have done as we are looking at the prevention of the spread of cholera in our country and at our school. One way to make a habit obvious is to use implementation intentions, which are statements that specify when, where, and how you will perform a certain action. And yeah, an example given here is I will meditate for 10 minutes at 7 a.m. in my bedroom. You can see that you are being intentional, you are being specific, and you are you are making it visible, you are making it obvious. The other thing you can even say, oh, after this presentation, I am going to read my Bible at home before I sleep. You know, you are making it very obvious and it's very straightforward, and you are not using bigger language whereby you're telling yourself, I am going to read a book. It's a very good statement, and the hearers are going to say, wow, somebody is going to read the book. But the question is, what's the title of the book? Who is the author? What is the book about? You know, those are some of the things that people can ask you. To continue. Another way to make a habit obvious is to use habit stacking, which is linking a new habit to an existing one that you already do regularly. For example, after I brush my teeth, I will floss. Or you can even say, while I'm driving for work, I'll be listening to an audio book by James Clear, the book entitled The Atomic Habits. So you are stacking. You know that you do drive for work at this particular time. Actually, it's also called habit stacking or habit bundling. Yeah. So you stack the habits, the ones that you already have, you already do this. Then you also put in a new one. In that way, it will be exciting. The old habit, because as you are doing the habit that you already have, you'll be stimulated or excited to do the new habit. But you must make it obvious to yourself. Then a third way to make a habit obvious is to design your environment to make the cues of good habits more prominent and the cues of bad habits less visible. For example, putting a bowl of fruit on the counter and hiding the junk food in a drawer. Okay? So like in the case of the example that I gave of someone who wants to stop being and who wants to stop taking beer, they shouldn't be going near bars, but they would rather be going to places where there is a lot of water. Another example is the same one that I used, whereby we have placed a lot of washing points within the school so that the children will be prompted to wash their hands. The next law, make it attractive, chapter 8 to 10. This law is based on the idea that we are more likely to repeat a behavior when we experience positive emotions associated with it. I think it must be exciting, it must be attractive. And I think most of us, we do things that actually excite us, things that we are drawn to. You know, I'm a farmer and a teacher. If the other time I was reading on our group, people were talking about, I think we're talking about exploration of minerals and the like, and then I was just saying, what are they talking about? It's something that is not of my interest. It's not attractive, but if you talk about anything to do with education, something to do with agriculture, I'll be excited because it attracts me. So even when we are trying to change ourselves, we're trying to improve ourselves, we must make it attractive. Our habits are influenced by our cravings, which are the motivational forces behind our actions. Temptation bundling, which is also habit stacking, is a strategy to make a habit more attractive by pairing it with something you already enjoy. For example, I gave an example. While it's driving for work, you are listening to an audiobook, especially for those of us who have been introduced to reading when we are very old now. For example, you can listen to your favorite podcast only while exercising, or watch your favorite show only while doing household chores. This way, you can use anticipation of the reward to overcome the friction of the behavior. Because if it is hard to do, you definitely won't do it. You cannot develop a new habit if you make it a difficult one. It will be very tough. Here, James also discusses the role of social norms and peer pressure in shaping our habits. And I think this is important. You know, like I'm saying, I've never done I've read books before, but I've never read a book where I do a review and I share it with other people. But you know what? I was encouraged and motivated to do this because of the Smartversity. You know, because I hear this one talks about this, and at that point, Adi was sharing a lot of reviews on our page. And you know, that was it pushed me, it excited me, and this is the social thing I'm learning from my peers, from you, my colleagues here. You know, because of what everyone is doing and what everyone is talking about. On the group, everyone is talking about reading books. People are sharing books constantly. People are asking about books. So even when you didn't want to read, you end up reading. So this is what this point is all about. I think I've paraphrased it so I can move on to the next point. Okay. This should have been in this should have been in the fourth law, not the first law. Sorry, I think I need to edit my presentation. This should have been my third law. So forgive me, this should have been the third law. So the third law, make it easy. That is chapter 11 to chapter 14. The more we can reduce the friction associated with our habits, the more likely we are to perform them. I've just explained that, so I want to hear much of the time there. Friction associated with them. We can apply strategies like the 2-minute rule. I think this was introduced, I think I saw a book, I've not read it, and as I was trying to take, I think I've just forgotten the name of a gentleman, but he is talking about, you see, in the 2-minute rule, he's simply saying that if you have got something that you want to do, if you can do it within 2 minutes, do it. Don't wait for another time. Do it now within the next 2 minutes. You know? So this is going to help us. Yeah. So let me just read this point again. We can apply strategies like the 2-minute rule, habit stacking, and environmental design to make our good habits as easy as possible. And I think the environment is very important. And for us who are learning to read in our old age, you cannot go in a noisy place when you know that noise disturbs you. You cannot go there and start reading when you want to. When reading, you want reading to become your habit. It cannot work. The role of repetition. The amount of time we spend performing a habit is not as important as the number of times we repeat it. The most effective way to master a skill is to practice it frequently. I think we have always heard people say, practice makes perfect. The law of least effort. Human behavior follows the law of least effort. And I think this one, just to quickly paraphrase it, you know what? We all of us want to do something that is very easy. No one wants to go and start doing something that is very hard. You know, it's just our nature as human beings to go for something that we know we can easily do. But again, we need to be careful. We don't want to go for something that is very easy with no effort, especially when we are trying to come up with new habits. It has to be of least effort, but it doesn't have to be something insignificant. That's what we are talking about here. Then the last law here, which is the fourth law, is make it satisfying. This is chapter 15 to 17. We are more likely to repeat a behavior when the experience is satisfying. And I think this is how even addiction comes about. You know, when someone starts drinking beer, they feel satisfied. That's why they'll go back to it because of just that feeling. So even when we are thinking of habits, we need to make them satisfying. Let's do things that are going to bring satisfaction to us. So we should find a way of making these habits we're trying to develop very satisfying. Like in this case, I feel satisfied. I may not do it perfectly well, doing it for the first time. The fact that I'm able to do this, presenting a book review to a mass of people, then I feel good about it. And, you know, it's going to prompt me to learn more and even do a better job next time. So it is satisfying. It's a new habit and it's satisfying. So this is because we have a dopamine-driven feedback loop in our brains that rewards us for taking actions that are enjoyable. Again, this is going back to behavioral science. The reward is the cue that behavior is worth remembering and repeating. I need to move a little bit fast due to time. Use reinforcement and feedback. One way to make habits satisfying is to use positive reinforcement and feedback, such as tracking your progress. And I've seen this one even in our little ones. So when you give work to children, they quickly want you to give them feedback. You mark them, and then they want to see how their scores are. And if you miss that, the children become discouraged, and you even find that they won't even be able to do your work properly. So if you are always giving them quick feedback, you see that children always love to come to your class. It's something that I've seen from experience. And I think that even explains one of the things that I'm doing as a way of implementing what I'm learning here, is to make sure that I give work to children, I quickly grade it, and give them quick feedback, and then put some reinforcements in that to make sure that they are doing better. So these methods can increase your motivation and the confidence and make you feel good about your habits. However, this is now the warning line. However, not all habits are immediately satisfying. Some of them have delayed rewards, such as saving money, eating health, or exercising. These habits require a different strategy. And I think this is where we need to admit that we need to be convinced that when we are doing things as Atomic Habits is telling us, as we are learning from Atomic Habits, we do little things day by day. Let us be motivated by the fact that these little things we're doing, they're going to be compounded into something bigger or greater. Like, for the example, saving money, you have got a project you want to embark on. You start saving today, and you know this project will only materialize in 5 years' time. Do it. Let that be your motivation. Avoid the downside of habits. Yes, habits are very good. But we must also know that sometimes the good habits can become bad. It is important to avoid the downside of good habits, which is that they can become boring and stale at some time or over time. To prevent this, you need to find ways to keep your habits interesting and enjoyable, such as adding variety, challenge, or novelty, that is being real. You can also use a variable reward system, which creates a sense of curiosity and anticipation. By doing so, you can maintain your enthusiasm and avoid complacency. This is, I think, at some point in his book, he mentioned that you can, and I think even some of the resources that I shared on the platform, if you go to his website, he has even got things he has got a tracker, a PDF where you can download, print it, and then you can start tracking your own habits. Then he has got you can even write your habits on smaller cards that you are always looking at, and then you can even be scoring yourself to see how much you're doing on developing your new habits. Otherwise, if we don't do that, they may become boring, and then we may find ourselves stopping to what was once interesting. Okay. So yeah, so the last part of it is how to go from merely good to being truly great. That is advanced tactics. So here he's telling us that I think all of us, we have heard about the effect of genes on us as human beings. Sometimes they say, no, this is how this one is. No, it is in the family. But I think we can, by being deliberate and intentional, we can change certain things in our lives. We can develop new talents. We can develop and build our new habits and build our the newer versions of ourselves. So we should find a way of overcoming some of these things. I think on this one, actually, also has to do with the mindset and the things that we are putting in the environment and the people that are interacting with. We can change. I have seen people who never knew how to play chess. Just by interacting with people that play chess, even if it is not in the family, they learn how to play chess. Then there is this rule, which is calling the Goldilocks rule, how to stay motivated in life and work by working on tasks that are just beyond our current abilities, not too hard and not too easy. So this is what I had mentioned before, that when you are developing a habit, don't go for something too hard and don't go for something too easy, but just go for something that is easy but a little bit hard. Then when you do it, you feel satisfied and motivated to do it again. So the downside of creating good habits is how to avoid the pitfalls of complacency, boredom, and plateauing when we become too good at something, and how to keep improving by seeking feedback and experimenting with new strategies. And I think this is where we also need to be getting feedback from colleagues, sometimes even having an accountability partner. Yeah. So I think I'm going to end here due to, I think we need to have some time because I think this is already 2052. I'll end here, but just before I invite questions and the answers, I will quickly just mention two things. I think after reading this whole book, there's just one major thing that I've learned, which I'm also trying to encourage my staff to do, and even the children, because in practice, what I've seen my students sometimes struggling academically, and they will say mathematics is difficult, this is hard, and what, and I tell them that that riddle, they say, how do you put an elephant in a fridge? And then we say, cut it into smaller pieces, and then you fit the pieces in the fridge. So I tell them, you know what? If you want to be good at mathematics, you need to develop the habit of solving one math problem every day. When you wake up in the morning, solve one. At lunchtime or break time, solve another one. Before you go to bed, work on another math problem. Then you're going to love mathematics. So in other words, the lesson that I've learned is that I think I shouldn't always be looking at the bigger picture is important. But what I've learned is that I need to learn to do things step by step and be consistent. Make it a habit. Always do it. Don't stop. And in the long run, the small things that you do are going to accumulate into something bigger. Just like a building, it is made of smaller blocks, and we enjoy these massive buildings that have been made from smaller blocks. I think that's the major lesson that I have learned. And then the recommendation, I think one of the books that I can strongly recommend concerning habits is actually, I'll start with this very one, that is Atomic Habits. I think those that have read, who haven't read it, please take time to read the book. Then the other book I'll recommend is a book by Steve Harvey, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And if you can read all the different versions of that book, he has written the seven habits of highly successful people, the 7 habits of highly effective marriages, the 7 habits of highly effective teens, all those 7 habits of highly effective people. They are very good books to read. I think I know time is not with us, but at this point I'll end here, Mr. Adi. and see if there are some questions of point of discussion for us as a team. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Sinjani, for the wonderful presentation. You have spoken everything just on point. And just one question as a reviewer of the book, Atomic Habits. What is your rating? Let's say 1 out of 5, and 5 being the highest. What would be the rating you recommended and the rating?
First of all, I highly recommend this book. And you know what I love, Mr. I realized that there are last 2 chapters which I've not touched on, where there are additional chapters actually, but the material is there. He's saying that you can even apply this in your business. You can also, people have been asking him, how can I teach this to my children? And then he has put up a recommendation there as well. So, you can actually, these atomic habits can be applied in any situation, anywhere. And if I'm to rate this book, I think it's the second book that I've read about habits. My first book about habits was the book, the books by Steve Covey. And this is my second book that I've read about habits. And I can rate it as the 4.5. I would have rated it at 5. It's just that I think, in my view, is that he would have made it shorter, because most of the things he's actually repeating himself in so many ways. I think the reason he was just trying to put emphasis on the same things, but actually it's the same thing that he's talking about. I think one of the things that we can actually take away from is the habit loop, which is the cue. We are talking of the cue, and then we talk of the craving, the response, and the reward. Thank you. I don't know if I've answered the question, Mr. Ari.
Yes, thank you very much for that. I think giving you feedback as well, I can say that you have done a good job in your review. Even looking at the feedback that we have in the chat box there, we can, let me read a few. I think we can, from Gladys. Gladys said, great stuff, and then thank you for the valuable lessons and relatable illustrations. Yes, and then so power from Winga and Chosi. She said valuable insights, and love more nice review, like the point on temptation bundling. Thank you very much. Why do they say so, especially concerning the illustrations? I feel you dramatized the book in your review, where we were able to relate, and you localized the content. Is the book written from the other side of the world, but you read it and being able to apply it. I know because of your background as a teacher, where you are helping us as well. I like the fact that you brought it closer to our faces, and it reminded me so much of some behavioral psychologists. I think Pavlov. I'm not sure if James Clear is a behavioral psychologist as well. I need to do more on the research, but it's more on the behavioral psychologist. Some of the key takeaways I picked from your presentation, and even from the book itself, James says that habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. I think even when we pick the other side, the book by that is Mr. Hardy, I think, which is compound effects. we can relate if we have read, one has read those books well. Topping up or adding on the books that you recommended, I think even we can add the compound effect, self habits, interest, compound interest of self-improvement, and this is what we are trying to focus on. And the habits are the ones that shape us as well. And he has mentioned, I think, even in your presentation, that the environment is the invisible handshake, is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. I think this is what we are trying to learn, and you gave examples, especially at your workplace, the learners where you want to shape the certain habits, cleanliness, and you create a certain environment where they are able to quickly adapt. You put those cues that they will be able to focus on, and you want them to change into certain behaviors. So I'm wondering if you can call for more questions and comments, your experiences. If you cannot speak, you can type, and if you can raise your hand so that we can interact. The floor is open. Let me read something from Dan. He's saying, thank you for the wonderful presentation. Quite enlightening from a personal level. 2024 is a good year for self-improvement. Thank you once again. Read the book. These atomic habits are compound interest of self-improvement. So let's work towards that. More comments, feedback at this moment.
Yeah, I think I just want to say thank you. I think this is the wonderful feedback. Doing it for the first time is encouraging and motivated, Mr. Ali. Thank you for the platform. Thank you for the wonderful feedback, everyone.
No, you don't need even to apologize. You have done justice, I think, to me. You have done so well. There is no one who knows these things so well. There's no master. Every day we learn, and what you have brought, the points and what we have learned, I think we can say that you don't need to apologize in any way. Being the first time, you have done so well. Thank you very much, Mr. Paul. And I can make some closing remarks now. Next week, we are having another exciting moment. We are going to have in the next few weeks, that is on the 20th, we are going to have Dr. Maria Akan, who will be speaking to us. And that has been a crash program. And on the next day, which will be 20th, we will have our very own Madam Mrs. Hilda Nason. She will be speaking to us as well on life balance. Dr. Akan will be speaking to us on mental health issues, mental health awareness. So let's prepare some questions and let's be available. Those are the issues that concerns us. The subject that Dr. Maria will present, it's so important, and the subject that Madam or Mrs. Nielsen will present, it's a very important topic. And the first week of February or second week, we will have a book review by Chimbamba Gumbo. I am inviting all the participants in our Smartversity group to be active, to take up some roles, to do some book review, so that this group can remain active and relevant. We all have what it takes to do justice, to improve ourselves, and to contribute, inspiring one another. I think we have gone beyond 5 minutes. I want to say thank you for your time and looking forward to hosting you next week. My name is Ali Kingston Miller. Thank you and good night.